Right now, millions of Christians are unknowingly supporting fast food chains that openly display occult symbolism and use their massive cultural influence to normalize spiritual darkness. These restaurants have become so embedded in our daily lives that we don't notice how their logos and marketing campaigns subtly shift our spiritual focus away from God. The most dangerous part is that these influences seem so harmless that even mature believers are blind to the spiritual warfare happening right in front of their eyes. The Bible warns in Ephesians 6:12 that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of darkness. Today, we're exposing 5 fast food chains that use demonic symbolism and anti-Christian messaging to influence your spiritual life. From ancient pagan symbols hidden in plain sight to campaigns that mock biblical values, these revelations will change how you see these restaurants forever. If you want to protect your family from these spiritual deceptions and learn to recognize the enemy's tactics in everyday life, subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and comment the country you're watching from, so we can see how God is opening eyes around the world to these hidden influences. Share this with other Christians who need this wake-up call. Now let's start with the first chain that's been hiding occult symbolism in their logo for over 50 years. When Starbucks was founded in 1971, they chose a logo that most Christians would never think twice about. A beautiful mermaid with flowing hair and a crown. But what millions of believers don't realize is that this isn't just any mermaid. This is Melusina, an ancient pagan goddess associated with seduction, temptation, and spiritual deception in European folklore. The Bible warns us in 1 Timothy 4:1 that in later times, some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons. Yet here we have the world's largest coffee chain proudly displaying a demonic entity as their corporate symbol, and Christians line up daily to support it. The symbolism goes even deeper than most people realize. Notice how Melusina in the Starbucks logo is depicted with a crown, representing her as a ruling spiritual authority, and her arms are spread wide in an embracing gesture. Exactly how false spirits present themselves to draw people in. Her twin tails, which were more prominent in earlier versions of the logo, are a classic occult symbol representing the duality of good and evil. What's even more concerning is how this imagery has become so normalized that Christian parents regularly take their children to sit under this pagan symbol without a second thought. The Bible clearly states in 2 Corinthians 6:14, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness?" But the spiritual deception doesn't stop with their logo. It extends into their corporate activism and cultural influence. Starbucks has consistently used their massive platform to promote values that directly contradict biblical Christianity, from supporting practices that Scripture condemns to creating campaigns that mock traditional Christian beliefs. They've turned their stores into gathering places where secular culture is celebrated and Christian values are subtly undermined. What's particularly dangerous is how they've created an almost religious experience around coffee consumption, with devoted customers who display cult-like loyalty to the brand. As Jesus warned in Matthew 6:24, "No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other." Perhaps most troubling is how Starbucks has successfully infiltrated Christian communities by positioning themselves as a neutral meeting place for Bible studies and church gatherings. They've created an environment where believers unknowingly fellowship under pagan symbolism while supporting a corporation that actively opposes their faith. The very name Starbucks comes from a character in Moby Dick who was known for rebellion against authority, something that should concern every Christian who understands the importance of submission to God's authority. Revelation 18:4 commands us to come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins. But if you think that's shocking, what we're about to reveal about our next fast food chain will show you how even businesses that appear completely innocent can hide much darker spiritual influences. Founded in 1962 by Glenn Bell, Taco Bell might seem like just another fast food chain serving Mexican-inspired food, but a closer look at their branding reveals disturbing connections to occult symbolism that should alarm every Christian. Their corporate logo features a bell, which in ancient pagan traditions was used in ritual ceremonies to summon spirits and communicate with demonic entities. Throughout history, bells have been central to occult practices, from witchcraft rituals to summoning ceremonies. The Bible warns us in Deuteronomy 18:10-12 that there shall not be found among you anyone who practices divination or tells fortunes or interprets omens, or a sorcerer, for whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord. Yet millions of Christians regularly support a business that proudly displays a symbol historically connected to these very practices. The spiritual deception becomes even more apparent when you examine their most famous slogan, "Think outside the bun." While this might appear to be innocent marketing about food creativity, the deeper message is far more sinister. It's encouraging rebellion against established boundaries and traditions. In spiritual terms, this represents the exact mentality that led to Satan's fall and humanity's rebellion in the Garden of Eden. The phrase subtly promotes the idea that conventional thinking and traditional values should be abandoned in favor of progressive alternatives. This is the same spirit of rebellion that 1 Samuel 15:23 condemns when it states, "For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and presumption is as iniquity and idolatry." The slogan isn't just about food, it's programming a generation to reject biblical authority and moral boundaries. Taco Bell's marketing campaigns have consistently pushed cultural boundaries and mocked traditional values through provocative advertising that celebrates excess, rebellion, and counterculture movements. Their commercials often feature themes of late-night indulgence, breaking rules, and embracing behavior that contradicts biblical principles of moderation and self-control. They've positioned themselves as the brand for those who live outside societal norms, creating an identity around rejecting authority and embracing chaos. The company has systematically targeted young people with messaging that normalizes destructive lifestyle choices and promotes a worldview that stands in direct opposition to Christian values. As 1 Corinthians 15:33 warns us, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals." What makes Taco Bell particularly dangerous is how they've successfully marketed rebellion as fun and freedom, especially to Christian youth who don't recognize the spiritual warfare behind their messaging. Their entire brand identity is built on the concept of breaking boundaries and thinking outside established norms, which in a spiritual context means rejecting God's design and authority. They've created a cultural movement where being different means being rebellious, and being rebellious is celebrated as being authentic. This is exactly the lie that Lucifer used to deceive Eve in Genesis 3:5, promising that breaking God's boundaries would make her like God, knowing good and evil. Romans 1:25 describes those who exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator. And now, prepare yourself for what we're about to uncover next, because this third chain has been hiding occult connections that go back generations. Kentucky Fried Chicken, founded by Colonel Harlan Sanders in 1930, has built its entire empire around what they call their secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices. While this might seem like innocent marketing, the obsession with secrecy and hidden knowledge has deep connections to occult traditions that should concern every believer. Throughout history, secret formulas and hidden recipes have been central to witchcraft, alchemy, and mystical practices. The very concept of a secret that gives power and success mirrors the occult belief that hidden knowledge provides spiritual authority over others. The Bible warns us in Luke 8:17 that nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Yet KFC has built their entire brand identity around concealing information and creating mystique around their magical recipe. The symbolism surrounding Colonel Sanders himself reveals even more troubling connections. Sanders has been portrayed almost like a cult figure, with his image displayed in every restaurant like an icon to be revered. His white suit and string tie became a uniform that suggests authority and tradition, while his goatee and intense stare in promotional materials give him an almost sinister appearance that's reminiscent of occult imagery. The way KFC has mythologized Sanders goes far beyond normal corporate branding. They've created a personality cult where customers are encouraged to trust in the Colonel's way rather than questioning what they're consuming. This mirrors the false prophet warnings in Matthew 7:15, where Jesus tells us to beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing but inwardly are ravenous wolves. KFC's marketing has consistently promoted themes of indulgence, excess, and abandoning self-control in favor of immediate gratification. Their advertising campaigns often show people losing all restraint when faced with their food, promoting a mindset that directly contradicts biblical teachings about temperance and moderation. The famous slogan, "Finger licking good," encourages behavior that resembles gluttony and uncontrolled desire, exactly the kind of fleshly appetites that Scripture warns against. Their promotional materials regularly feature people in states of near ecstatic pleasure over food, creating an almost worship-like relationship with consumption. As 1 Corinthians 6:12 reminds us, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. Perhaps most concerning is how KFC has normalized the concept of blind trust in corporate authority through their "Trust the Colonel" messaging. They've trained millions of customers to accept secrecy as normal and even desirable, conditioning people to stop asking questions about what they're supporting or consuming. This mental conditioning extends far beyond food and creates a mindset where hidden knowledge and secretive authority figures are viewed as trustworthy rather than suspicious. The company has successfully programmed customers to celebrate mystery rather than demand transparency, which directly opposes the biblical principle of testing all things. As 1 Thessalonians 5:21 commands us, "Test everything, hold fast what is good." But what we're about to reveal about our next chain shows how corporate messaging can become even more blatantly anti-Christian, with slogans that directly challenge God's authority. Burger King's most famous slogan, "Have it your way," might sound like customer service, but from a spiritual perspective, it represents one of the most dangerous philosophies being promoted to Christians today. This phrase embodies the exact same spirit of rebellion that caused Lucifer's fall from heaven, the belief that individual will should supersede divine authority. When the Bible teaches submission to God's will and following His ways, Burger King promotes the opposite message, that your personal desires should be the ultimate authority in your life. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, and His ways are not our ways. Yet this slogan encourages millions to prioritize their own preferences over God's design. This isn't just about food ordering, it's programming a generation to believe that personal choice should trump divine authority in every area of life. The crown symbolism in Burger King's logo reveals an even deeper spiritual deception. Throughout Scripture, crowns represent authority, dominion, and rulership, attributes that belong ultimately to God alone. By positioning their customers as kings who can have it their way, The company is promoting the satanic lie that humans should be the ultimate authority in their own lives. This directly contradicts Jesus' teaching in Matthew 16:24 that, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." The crown imagery suggests that customers should wear the crown of self-determination rather than submit to the crown of Christ. Every time someone sees that logo, they're being subtly reminded that they should be the king of their own domain, making decisions based on personal desire rather than biblical truth. Burger King's advertising campaigns have consistently pushed boundaries with provocative and often offensive content that deliberately challenges traditional values and Christian sensibilities. Their marketing strategy often involves creating controversy and mocking conventional morality, positioning their brand as the choice for those who reject societal norms. They've produced advertisements that mock traditional family structures, promote rebellious attitudes, and celebrate behavior that directly contradicts biblical principles. The company seems to take pride in being offensive and controversial, using shock value to generate attention and brand loyalty among those who enjoy seeing Christian values ridiculed. As Romans 1:32 warns, there are those who not only do such things but give approval to those who practice them. What makes Burger King particularly insidious is how they've successfully marketed rebellion as a form of personal empowerment, especially targeting young people who are naturally inclined to question authority. Their entire brand identity is built around the idea that following rules and accepting limitations is somehow inferior to demanding your own way. This creates a mindset that extends far beyond fast food preferences and influences how people approach spiritual authority, parental guidance, and biblical teaching. They've conditioned millions to believe that compromise and submission are signs of weakness, while demanding personal preference is a sign of strength and authenticity. This directly opposes Philippians 2:3, which calls us to do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. But if you think promoting individual rebellion is dangerous, wait until you see how our final chain has used their global influence to reshape entire cultures and create what might be the most successful secular religion in human history. McDonald's golden arches aren't just a corporate logo. They represent one of the most successful examples of occult symbolism being normalized in global culture. These arches form the letter M, but in ancient symbolism, this shape represents the astrological sign of Scorpio and has deep connections to pagan worship and fertility rituals. The golden color itself has been used throughout history in sun worship and false religions to represent divine power and authority. What's most disturbing is how this symbol has become more recognizable worldwide than the Christian cross, reaching into virtually every nation on earth with a consistent message of material satisfaction over spiritual fulfillment. The Bible warns us in verse John 2:15-16 that if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. The figure of Ronald McDonald represents perhaps the most successful demonic deception targeted at children in modern history. This clown character, with his bright red hair, painted white face, and exaggerated features, bears a striking resemblance to depictions of trickster spirits and demonic entities found in various occult traditions. The way children are encouraged to trust, love, and even celebrate this figure mirrors how false prophets present themselves as friendly and harmless, while leading people away from truth. Ronald's constant smile and cheerful demeanor mask the spiritual danger of programming children to associate happiness and fulfillment with corporate consumption rather than godly contentment. As Jesus warned in Matthew 18:6, Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. McDonald's has achieved something unprecedented in human history. They've created a global culture that transcends national boundaries, languages, and even religious differences. Their restaurants serve as modern temples where people gather to participate in ritualistic consumption, following standardized procedures and celebrating material satisfaction. The company has successfully programmed billions of people to see their brand as a source of comfort, happiness, and social connection, roles that should be filled by family, community, and faith. Their "I'm loving it" slogan encourages an emotional attachment to corporate products that borders on worship, while their Happy Meal toys create childhood memories that associate spiritual fulfillment with material acquisition. This represents the exact idolatry that Colossians 3:5 warns against when it calls greed idolatry. What makes McDonald's the most dangerous of all these chains is their unprecedented global reach and cultural influence, which has effectively created a secular religion with golden arches as its symbol, Ronald as its prophet, and consumption as its sacrament. They've established over 40,000 locations worldwide, making their presence more ubiquitous than most Christian denominations, and their marketing has successfully convinced multiple generations that happiness comes through their doors rather than through relationship with God. The company has become a substitute church for millions, offering community, comfort, and ritual in ways that directly compete with genuine spiritual fulfillment. Their success represents the ultimate triumph of materialism over spirituality, showing how corporate power can reshape entire cultures and redirect human worship away from the Creator toward the created. As Romans 1:25 states, they have exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator. This is why every Christian must recognize that supporting these establishments isn't just about food choices, it's about which kingdom we're ultimately serving. These fast food chains may seem innocent, but their symbolism and messaging systematically promote rebellion against God's authority and normalize occult influences in our daily lives. The Bible warns in 2 Timothy 3:13 that evil people and impostors will go from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. That's why discerning these spiritual deceptions is crucial for every believer who wants to honor God in all areas of life. If you want to continue learning about hidden spiritual deceptions in everyday life, click on the video appearing on your screen right now for more eye-opening revelations. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these fast food chains surprised you the most? Comment below along with the country you're watching from. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family who need this spiritual discernment. May God open your eyes to recognize the enemy's tactics in every area of life.